Kia ora and welcome back to another episode of CassyApps. Today we are talking about 5 things that my 20s taught me and how I feel about those things, those lessons that I learnt in my 20s as I turn 30 at the end of this year, which I'm so excited about. I feel like for ages I thought post 25 was like the worst time ever because you're like old and like getting married and having kids, and honestly it's the best time ever. So that was a lie that was sold to me to make me want to keep putting stuff up my nose, which was not the right decision. Anyways, here we go. The first lesson that I learned, my number one thing that my 20s taught me was you can do hard things. It's so basic and it's so good because it's the truth. Realistically, when I look back on my 20s, so many hard things in all different scales. I remember when I first started my first like big girl job, I worked at Auckland Council in building control. And I thought it was so scary and stuff, and I was so nervous, and I smashed it. It's all good. We did it. Then I went on to be a flight attendant, and that was so scary, and I was so stressed, but I did it. And then I almost literally lost my job as a flight attendant. Before I even got signed off as a flight attendant, I almost lost my job because I failed all of these flight attendant tests. You have to fail 3 in a row to lose your job, and I failed 2. And then I'd have a sit-down meeting and work it out. But I managed to pass that final one, so I didn't lose my job, which is great. But that felt like the hardest thing ever. But I got through it, and looking back on it, I just honestly had raging ADHD and I didn't find planes interesting, which is okay. That's all right. You're not going to be good at all the things. But if there's one thing that my 20s taught me is that I can do hard things. Everything that I thought was so hard, I've gotten through and I've gone to the other side. And now I'm not scared to do hard things. If I think something's going to be hard, I'm not like, oh, I shouldn't do that. I'm like, yeah, I'll probably learn a lot from that, especially with 2 under 2, which we are gearing up for obviously in March, to have 2 little humans that we're fully responsible for. I know it's going to be hard. People always like, oh, 2 under 2, so hard. 2 under 2, oh, it's going to be so hard. And I'm like, cool, life's hard. I don't know. I'm quite good at hard things and I'm quite confident that I'll figure it out. And even if it is super hard, I'll get better. The stuff you learn from your life being hard is so much more valuable than the stuff you learn from your life being easy. I know that for sure. I know so many people that have had quite easy, breezy, beautiful lives, and I used to be so jealous of them because they had financially secure parents or just emotionally stable families. What a privilege. And I would be like, oh, I wish I had that. And then I'd be like, no, they will never learn the things that I learned. And you only learn stuff. You only learn the hard lessons by going through the hard things. So if you're in a really hard period right now and you're like, fuck this, honestly, one day you'll look back on it and be like, thank you. And it's something that my cousin Emily always says to me anytime I'm like, oh, this is going to be hard. And she'll just look at me super peacefully. I love it. And she'll go, you can do hard things. You're really good at doing hard things. No, it always makes me want to cry every time she says it. But the amount of times I've called her with a problem and she's just said, you can do hard things. Incredible. Thank you, Emily. Number 2 is knowing how to look after yourself is the most valuable thing you can have, and it's free. I genuinely mean this. If you think about yourself as a child that you nanny. This is the best thing that ever happened to me. I used to be a nanny and I got really good at looking after the girls that I nanny. I knew what they liked. I knew what they didn't like. I knew what time of the day they were going to be the most productive, least productive. I knew what would upset them, what wouldn't upset them, everything. I knew everything about these girls. And it made me be like, I don't even know all that stuff about me. What do I like doing in the morning? What do I like doing in the afternoon? What's my favorite food? What? And it made me realize that the reason I was so unhappy a lot of the time is because I just wasn't very good at looking after myself. I wasn't very good at being like, oh, I need to go outside, or oh, I need to eat some more veggies today. I need to drink more water. All of that stuff we just kind of take for granted. And I think a lot of us think that we do it, but we don't, unless you're consciously asking yourself regularly, what do you need? You actually don't know how to look after yourself. And especially if you grew up in a home where the adults around you weren't actively showing you how to look after yourself, it's probably that's something that would have fallen to the waistline, and it's super normal that lots of adults don't know how to do that. So if there's one thing that I would recommend anybody do, especially before they become parents and they start having to look after a little person, figure out how to look after yourself. Because if you know how to look after yourself inside and out, I reckon looking after a little person so much easier. Because I always can look at Nugget and be like, I think you're hungry, because I know what I look like when I'm hungry. Or I think you need to go stand in the grass, my guy. You just need to be outside for a little bit and run off this energy, because I know what I look like when I need to run off energy. And it's the same thing in just different skin, realistically. So learning how to look after yourself is the most valuable thing. And if you've just gone through a breakup or you're going through a really hard time, that's actually the perfect time to learn to look after yourself, because it's when you're going to reap the most rewards from looking after yourself when you're going through something tough. Think about it. When your best friend goes through a breakup, you want to be there. You want to look after her. So if you're going through something hard, literally start journaling, analyze yourself. You are a nanny and you are also the child that you nanny, and get really good at the job, because it will pay you back a million times over. My third thing that my 20s taught me was, honestly, play the level. Do what you're doing, whatever it is you're doing, whatever chapter you're in. I remember in my early 20s, my whole thing was going out, putting stuff up my nose, drinking heaps of alcohol. Why did I say that? Drinking drinks, like getting drunk, getting wasted. And like, literally, I've gone through periods of my life where I had like zero family support. I didn't have contact with any of them. And then I've had other periods of my life where I had all the family support. And I had so many people around me. Like, I've had periods where I felt like I had heaps of friends and then no friends. And like, it's just all life. It's meant to be this big roller coaster up and down. It's meant to feel really hard sometimes and then really fucking easy other times. And the best thing that you can do is just play the level. Do what needs to be done. Be so present and know that nothing actually lasts forever. Like, the good times aren't going to last forever. The bad times aren't going to last forever. Everything is temporary, and there's so much power in knowing that. I remember a couple of years ago, I was like in the fucking pits. I was like, it was when I started making TikTok. So you guys all know, like, I had my little sister. I was like just feeling so overwhelmed. I'd just cut off my family. I'd broken up with my boyfriend the year before, and I was so lonely. And I remember just feeling so upset. And then I also just remember being like, this is temporary. This is just a fucking level, and I'm not going to be here forever. And one day I'll look back on this and all this will be as a memory. And knowing that everything you go through will eventually be a memory is so cool, because you're like, one day I'm just going to have to think about this feeling that I once had, and I won't ever have to feel it again. It was such an interesting kind of thing. And I thought about it heaps as well when we were in Melbourne, when I recently had a baby last year. No, the year before last, which is wild. 2023, I had my son and we moved to Melbourne, and I did the first 6 months of being a new mum in a new city with no friends. So it was like a whole thing, and there were so many days I was like, fuck, this is hard. Like, because it's real Groundhog Day, especially when you don't have any friends. You're like doing the same thing over and over again. And then I was like, oh, this will be a memory one day. This will just be a memory. So I went and bought the snacks that I can only buy in Melbourne, and I just was present. And it was hard. I'm not going to act like it was the easiest year of my life. It was definitely a tough one, but I learned so much. And I think there's just so much power in letting yourself be present and play the fucking level. Just do what's in front of you is so powerful. Number 4 is, and this is actually something that I've only really learned recently, but being reactive, being a person that's easily offended by everything, is a weakness. It's not a strength. I've always thought that being a reactive person was a strength. Like, don't fuck with me. Don't speak to me like that. I'll pop off. And I've always thought, wow, that's so cool. Like, you're so scary. But then obviously I got arrested a couple years ago because I was a reactive person, and somebody did something that made me be like, I'm going to fucking punch you in the face. And I punched him in the face and ended up in jail. And I was like, oh, this is actually such a weakness. It's so pathetic that I got put in a hostile situation and I couldn't just walk away. I had no control over my feelings, over my emotions, over my body. Then I just punched somebody in the face and I got arrested, and now I don't have human rights for the weekend. Like, that's not a flex. Why did I think that being reactive was cool? That's so embarrassing. I think back to it now and I'm like, there's no power or control in being reactive. It's actually really, it just shows that you don't have good emotional regulation. And that's not a flex. That's not cool. And really learning that it wasn't cool was a big shift for me because I'd always worn my reactivity like a badge of honor. Like I was like, don't mess with me. I'm got a temper. It was something that other people should be scared of, when realistically it was me. It was me who should be scared of that because I'm the person that has to deal with the consequences of that. And it took me having to deal with the consequences of that, going to jail for the weekend, going through the court system, everything, that made me be like, oh, okay, it's literally not a flex. I need to sort this out. And that was the reason that I started meditating and everything. And now it's cool because I don't think you realize how much you react to everything until you work on your reactivity. I used to get offended. I used to get road rage, would personally offend me. Like somebody cut me off, I'd be like, how the fuck? How dare he do that to me? Like, as if it's like a personal thing. No, this dude's just late for work and he doesn't really care about anyone else on the road. That's not a personal thing. Like, if somebody said a flyaway comment about what I was wearing or anything, I'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe they would say that. It literally has nothing to do with me. They've said it because there's something they're insecure about within themselves. And the moment I started, meditating was a big thing with my reactivity, journaling, noticing how often I reacted to things, noticing how many times I would take something personally that was not personal, was such a game changer. And now I get to flutter through life and enjoy so much more. And I'm so glad I sorted my reactivity out before becoming a mum, because holy heck, it's so hard to deal with all the comments that you get as a new mum, especially when you're sleep deprived and you've got fucking everybody being like, oh, are they doing that? How much are they drinking? Oh, you're going for a bottle instead of breastfeeding. And it can, I obviously felt a bit reactive when you're sleep deprived and you're feeling upset. But majority of the time I was able to be like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I don't really care what you did. Doesn't matter. My kid, he's all good. Look at him. He's fine. And the more confident you can be in yourself, the less reactive you'll be. If you're a really reactive person, it's a sign that you're not confident in what you do. Somebody really confident in who they are and what they do aren't going to feel reactive. They're not going to feel personally attacked by other people's opinions, because you're going to be like, oh, that's you. That's what you think. I don't care. So really grasping that being reactive wasn't a flex, and it was actually my responsibility to sort out, and then sorting it out, one of the most powerful shifts that I ever experienced. And I'm so glad that I did it in my 20s, because sometimes, you will meet 60-year-old, 7-year-old people that feel personally offended by the world. And I'm like, oh my God, imagine how much time you think about what other people are doing. That's exhausting. I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine taking everything personally. That would fucking suck. So yeah, if there's anything that I would recommend that you do, especially if you grew up with reactive adults, if you're thinking, oh, no, my mum's reactive, my dad's reactive, I'm not reactive, you probably are. It's probably just looking differently. Or you might not be. That would be cool. But keep an eye out. Notice, do you feel personally offended by things that are outside of you? Because it's honestly never personal. The last and final lesson that I learned in my 20s that I think is super valuable is, the less you care what people think, the less people think about and talk about you. 100%. I believe that to my fucking core. And I see it so much. If somebody's really self-conscious about everybody's opinion, there are always the people that have a million people having opinions about them. I feel like somebody asked me once, what was everybody's opinions about you and Nick moving really fast? Because we got engaged and pregnant within the first 3 months of being together on purpose. It was planned. We just, when you know, okay? And I had a question once on my Instagram being like, what, how did people react? And I was like, nobody reacted. Nobody told me that I was moving too fast. Nobody told Nick that he was moving too fast, because we're both the kind of people that will do whatever we want, whenever we want. We like learning lessons our way, doing life our way. So nobody's going to waste their breath. And that's what so often is the case, especially for people that if you stop caring what people think and you stop asking everybody for their opinions, people will stop giving them. So often you will open yourself up to it by being like, oh, well, what do you think? Or should I have done that? Or all those kinds of things. You're welcoming in people's opinions. So you're going to feel more and more self-conscious because you feel almost responsible for the way that other people think and feel about something. But you're totally not. It's all up to you. You can do whatever the fuck you want. It's your life. I think to round off the 5 things that my 20s taught me is realistically, your 20s are learning. Your whole life is learning, but your 20s is your first 10 years as an adult. That's huge. Especially if you were to break it down into 5 years, those first 5 years of in your 20s, you have no fucking clue what you're doing. All of a sudden you're having to pay rent, buy food, book your own doctor's appointment, everything, all the things. And you're like, what the fuck? Literally, it was not 2 years ago and I was having to ask somebody if I can go to the bathroom. Like, what do you mean I'm having to be responsible for everything? It's fucking scary and it's full on. And you're allowed to find it scary and full on, and you're allowed to find it kind of overwhelming. But you have to realize that the point of your 20s is to make mistakes. The point of your 20s is to figure out what you want. And the only way to figure that out is by trial and error. So it's like, just throw shit at a wall in your 20s, learn stuff, actually figure out what you like and don't like, and follow that. Do things that make you happy, be around people that make you happy, and be open to getting things wrong, because you're going to get so many things wrong. And there's so much power in getting things wrong. You don't really learn if you're always getting things right, I reckon. But yes, thank you so much for listening to this episode of CassyApps. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any thoughts, questions, queries about the things that I learned in my 20s, or maybe tell me what you learned in your 20s. Or if you're in your 20s, God be with you. It's all good. It's going to get better.